Hello. Today I'm taking a bit of a break from all the ranked games, or well, ranked commentaries, and I'm actually dipping by the PTS to have a look at the new map, Haven. This is the high tier map. The ring one wasn't too special, but this one is actually quite interesting. It's designed for tier 7 to tier 10, but of course you can end up in this as early as tier 5, because if you get tier 7 matchmaking, then you end up here. Showing off one of the new features in the PTS as well, we can finally put ship names on minimap without needing a mod. They've integrated it as part of the game, which I really enjoy, because Wargaming has been pretty good about taking mods that are like quality of life improvements and making them part of the game, which is something I've been enjoying a lot, because well, at this point I don't think I even need any single mod, or I don't consider any single mod that important anymore. Here's an overlook of the new map. Reminds a bit of North, with A and D being completely exposed, or almost completely exposed. You can still do a fair amount of ninja capping around the islands, but they are mostly the most open caps with very little cover around them. Unlike North though, the D is not as isolated as it is on the map North, although to be fair, that big island up north does isolate you a fair amount if you push in from the south side, but it's nowhere near as bad as North is, where you basically get punished by going D by being completely isolated by all the terrain. So overall, I'm actually liking this design quite a bit, because one of the clear signs here is that Wargaming have clearly learned some lessons when it comes to openness of maps. For those that aren't aware, I absolutely despise maps like Okinawa, Mountain Range, Tears of the Desert, Ocean. I hate those maps because they're way too open, and because they're so open, people are afraid to push because there's no cover to push, so they end up sitting in base camping all game, and that's mostly because of the map design. When there's no cover to push, no one will push anywhere. But on this map, there's plenty of options. There's all this cover, like I can pick a fight with my targets up there. There's a huge rock blocking me from D. There's this island on my left that's blocking me from B, and well, they can't shoot me from A yet because they haven't pushed there. So you can actually push into these more aggressive positions, and I really enjoy this, especially as a cruiser player, because this tended to be extremely unfun and punishing trying to go for these caps. Or on other maps, that is. Another thing I like is on B, and in fact on most caps, there is cover nearby, which means of course if you get radared or something similar, it's pretty easy to duck into cover. C is the only cap that is completely open, but in return C is completely covered from every side with islands, so it's pretty easy to support from both sides and so forth, and quite easy to break line of sight with anyone shooting you as well. So overall, so far, this was my first game in it. I took, of course, my Cleveland out. It's always been one of my favorite cruisers, and I've always enjoyed this one. A very powerful cruiser, and honestly, whenever I had the Cleveland, I always wrecked face with it, and I never really understood why some people complain about it, because I thought this was the original fire starter, the original HE spammer that just melted all its targets. Looks like we're not going to be able to get control here. They are pushing too hard into this cap. They got battleships, DDs, everything. But I don't mind. See, this is where I like this island cover. Okay, they're taking control of C, but that doesn't mean I instantly die. I can just pretty easily duck into cover behind the islands here, and I can regroup down at D. There are all these options, and that's a sign of good map design. When you have options, you should never be constrained and forced into this handful of... Oh, Omaha? Really? Really, Omaha? You're gonna give me broadside? Switching to AP, of course. Ah, someone punished him just before I could. That's a shame. Because, of course, I was about to citadel the crap out of him. I did get the kill, though, with 3 citadels, but I could have done a lot more. Sadly, he got away. I just noticed I have the fire frame thing on. That's of course because it's PTS, so I haven't had time to turn it off. That's a bit awkward, but whatever. We'll just pretend it didn't happen. But these kind of island coverings, they're not these ridiculously high mountains that we see on some of the maps, so that means you'll be able to lob shells over these, especially ships like the Atlanta will probably enjoy this map quite a bit. I can imagine there's hundreds of good spots on this map on Atlanta. Battleship players, on the other hand, well, if you like to brawl and push in, play German battleships, pushing into any of these middle caps is probably a pretty damn good option. If you more like the more open areas, then you can go A and D and flank from those sides. So there's options. I like that. And overall, all these islands and all this terrain means, of course, radar and Hydra are going to be very strong because, well, they can sneak up on you. But on the other hand, there's also going to be plenty of counterplay in the form of cover. So I like that. Also, I think IG and DDs are gonna do fairly well on this map because there's so much ambush potential. There's so many spots where people come sailing around across a corner or something. They have to push into you and you can just punish them. An example, in fact, is this cap here. If we look at the difference between B and C here, there's this tight little choke point almost between B and C. It's not as bad as it tends to be in some maps. For example, Islands of Ice. If you go to A, you kind of automatically lose the game because you have to push through this choke point. It's not as bad of a choke point, but there's still these obvious chokes where you can focus defenses and you can play around them, allowing for some tactics. In fact, this is a map that could be quite interesting in competitive mode as well, because of how it is designed. There's multiple modes of how this map is set up. There's one where there's no A or D cap. There's just A and B is moved to each spawn, and then you have B and C that are the two contestable ones. Much like domination mode on Two Brothers, where two caps are already capped by each side to begin with, and then you go out to take the neutral ones. And that's also been interesting, because in that game mode all the focus is on the middle part where all the cover and all the terrain is, and that is a good design. Overall, this feels like a step away from many of the horrid maps we've seen from Wargaming. I mean, they've had some really terrible map designs like Okinawa, Mountain Range. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking with those maps. It feels like, I don't know, but games are always incredibly passive on those, for good reason, because the map design is just awful. There's no cover, so why would anyone push up? This map, on the other hand, there is plenty of cover everywhere. I mean, this is PTS, so of course people play more freely than they usually do, but still, I like it. I enjoy it a lot. In fact, I'm very impressed, and I'm glad that we're getting more maps that have more options and more cover, and people can pull off some interesting new tactics. Hey, Kraken! But then again, this is Cleveland. Cleveland is god tier. Too much fun of a ship. Overall, though, I think we're going to see plenty of different playstyles pop up on this map, and plenty of different ships are going to be able to shine, and it's going to be hard to tell what is going to be the right or wrong decisions to make, because so far this map just looks very varied, and in fact I can see advantages going for any caps on any side, and I'll love to see this in some competitive modes, like in Clan Wars and such. You could probably pull some really interesting tactics on this one. Thanks to all the cover, you were able to sneak in and you'd actually get some real brawling battles in Clan Wars, which could be awesome. So this map seems fantastic. Well, very, very good. Much better than all the others. In fact, one of my favorite maps is North, for the very reason that it offers so many different options, so many different playstyles. You can play it with any ship and have a good time. You can play it as DD, as battleship, as cruiser, and this map seems to share many of those similar points, where it doesn't matter what ship you're playing, you'll still be able to enjoy yourself. If you don't like the brawling, you don't want to go in there, you want to be a battleship and like pick long range fights, you can go A, you can go D. That probably won't be an issue because you'll still be able to support the closest cap. Like if you go D and then push around, you can support C. If you go A and then push right into B, you can support that as well. So the options are there, and it's going to be up to the players to find them. So for once, well done Wargaming for actually coming up with a design that isn't designed to pamper battleships so they can sit in the middle to open and snipe all game while everyone else dies of boredom. One of the issues, of course, with maps like Mountain Range is the fact that you can see straight from your own spawn right into the enemy spawn, and in between there's these open caps with no cover whatsoever, so the only one who can even go for those covers is DDs, and if any cruiser shows up they just instantly get killed by all the base camping battleships, and of course that's the definition of unfun. Okinawa has the same issue, Ocean has this issue, Tears of the Desert, there the issue is that there's no cover anywhere except around the bases, so both teams base camp all the time. Here there is in fact almost no real cover around the base, and I like that. In fact, if you want good cover, you kind of have to push close to the capture points. If you look at the minimap, you'll notice that the best cover is actually, I'd say, around B and maybe around C, but you have to get really close to those islands to be able to utilize it. And I love that, because if they manage to fool the battleships into pushing close enough to D, B, and C to actually be in cover, then the battleships are also actually close enough to be useful and not base camping like idiots like they usually do. I'm not running IFHE on this Cleveland build, by the way, since it was just a captain I took for the sake of leveling, since I wanted to test things on the PTS, hence the pitiful HE damage on this Fuso. But that's a good design. So this was a bit of a round tour, or well, I don't know how much of a round tour it was just me sailing around and wrecking people in the Cleveland, which I consider quite fun and quite enjoyable, and the map itself seems like a very promising start. A step in the right direction, I would say. Let's see if I can actually kill this Independence. I already have 6 kills. If I get the Independence... Ah, unfortunate. Since people will ask for the scoreboard if I don't show it, might as well show it. This was the first win of the day, hence all the massive XP bonuses and things. And there's the base XP. But once again, it's PTS. I don't really value PTS games that much because people tend to be quite derp. Anyway, that was my look and quite impressed commentary of the new map Haven. It looks very, very promising.